Amy, I think that cat's name is Willow, right? Welcome to the cat.
Yep, that did it, Simon. Thanks for your help. Take care, bud. Have a good night. Yep.
Good evening and welcome to this digitally enabled online meeting of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth held on Monday, August 9th, 2021. I'm Mayor Todd Kasenberg and I'll call this meeting to order. I ask the Deputy Clerk to note our starting time minutes as 7 p.m. We acknowledge that we are on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe peoples. We wish to recognize the long history of Indigenous peoples in Canada and show our respect to them today. We recognize their stewardship of the land. May we all live with respect on this land and live in peace and friendship. Tonight's meeting is being streamed live on the Municipality of North Perth YouTube channel and will be available there after the meeting as an archived video. Anyone who is invited to speak will be recorded and their voice, image, and comments will form part of the live and archived records. The chair and or the clerk have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances where deemed relevant. Circumstances may include instances where the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory, or potentially inappropriate to be published. Thank you. Welcome to those who are joining us via the Channel. Welcome to councillors, staff, and others who are participating in this meeting tonight. We invite your decorum over the course of the coming meeting. All are in attendance. We did a check, and so we're ready to go. Let us move to item 2.1 of our agenda pertaining to pecuniary interest. For the benefit of those unfamiliar with our council practices, provincial legislation requires councillors with a potential pecuniary or financial interest in any item at the council table to declare this interest and to remove her or himself from discussions and voting on the item. In accordance with recommended protocol at this time, I invite all councillors with a perceived pecuniary interest, including those who have already declared in writing, to verbally advise the chair in public session and to submit documentation to this effect in writing to the clerk. Councillors are further reminded that should a potential conflict arise during the meeting, they may so declare and act at any point in the meeting. Tonight, we have advance notice from 4 councillors. We'll start with Councillor Anstett. Welcome, Councillor Anstett. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. Through you this evening, I'd like to declare a pecuniary interest on item 5.5.1, the accounts, specifically the daycare, as my son attends the St. Mary's daycare, and also on item 13.1, the confirmatory bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Anstett. Next up is Councillor Behrens. Welcome, Councillor Behrens.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. This evening, I would like to declare conflict on 5.1, the accounts, specifically the daycare accounts for the North Perth Spinrite Child and Family Center, as I have grandchildren attending there, as well as associated programming, and in addition to that, 13.1 confirmatory bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Behrens. Deputy Mayor Kellum, you're next. Welcome.
Yes, through you, Mayor Kasenberg, I would like to declare pecuniary interest on items 5.5.1 and 13.1, specifically with the daycare accounts as my grandson attends, as well Perth Meadow accounts as my mother and father-in-law are tenants there. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Kellum. Next up is Councillor Andreessen. Welcome, Councillor Andreessen.
Hi, thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. I'll be declaring pecuniary interest on items 7.1 regarding correspondence from the Listual Agricultural Society and 13.1, the confirmatory bylaw. I am currently a director of the Listual Agricultural Society and feel that I should be declaring that conflict. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, are there any other councillors who've taken note of items that they'd like to declare before we move forward with the rest of our business? We're not seeing any indication of that, so let me get on to explain our virtual processes. Tonight, I'll be systematically trying to seek consent from various councillors as movers and seconders of the various resolutions and bylaws that are put before us tonight. Largely, I do this alphabetically. Should a councillor not wish to respond to the request, they may say so, and I will move to the next name on the alphabetical list. I keep hoping that I get a perfect record in terms of remembering all of those declarations of pecuniary interest, but maybe this will be my night. We'll see. Regarding speaking to our business, councillors tonight will identify themselves through our conferencing technologies chat function. The clerk is assisting me in maintaining the speaking order from that source. Councillors are allowed on their turn to deliver a primary question or comment and may make one supplemental without any intervention from me. We will follow speaking order carefully, though, and any councillor wishing to have a second say beyond their first two will have to indicate again and go to the bottom of the list. This is a normal process consistent with Robert's Rules of Order. Councillors are reminded that if I believe you're not audible, I'll let you know that. I certainly also remind you to maintain a mute state in the web conference until I have called upon you, if necessary, for a verbal reaction. Should any of your votes not show up in eScribe, I will call on you when things seem stalled to register a manual vote. At that time, take yourself off mute, answer yes or no on the motion, then return to mute. We are very experienced with these practices now. Regarding item 2.2 of our agenda, I have a motion before me for the adoption of the agenda for tonight's meeting. It reads simply that the agenda for tonight's meeting be approved. Deputy Mayor Kellum, we'll start with you tonight. Would you serve as a mover for that?
Yes, I will make that motion.
Thank you. Councillor Johnston, will you serve as our second?
Yes, I would second that.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or debate on this one? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. We are now at agenda item number 3, the so-called consent agenda. These items are placed on our agenda because they are believed to be non-contentious, yet they require the council's recognition and or action. Grouping them expedites our business. However, any councillor wishing to extract an item from the consent agenda for discussion, debate, and or individual action may do so. There are 9 items on our consent agenda tonight, including the minutes of our last regular council meeting. Councillors, do any of you have a desire to extract any of these items for further discussion or action? If so, please indicate in the web chat function so that the clerk may monitor and advise. Okay, let's start with Councillor Andries.
Good evening, everyone. Through you, Mayor Kasenberg. I am thinking about pulling out of the consent agenda, which relates to the town of Fort Erie's information and letter regarding the capital gains tax on primary residences. They are looking for municipal councils to support the fact that government should not be making any changes to those capital gains exemptions. So I feel that it would be really important for us as a council to support that kind of letter going forward to our governments. That's item 3.6. And also 3.8 regarding Dr. Wielden and Dr. Young's request to really inform our local, our provincial government about underfunding of eye care in Ontario. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Andreessen. Clerk Bertels, who's next? Deputy Mayor Kellum, you're next.
Yes, good evening, everyone. And through you, Mayor Kasenberg, I'm also in support of pulling what Councillor Andreessen said, 3.8. Just my only concern there, though, is it says that the government, if they do not act before September 1st, that's not very much time to get that out. So, but anyway, I am in support of pulling that as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And who's next? Councillor Seiler, you're next.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. I'll have to declare a conflict on 3.8. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Councillor Seiler. Councillor Anstead, you're next.
Thanks, Mayor Kasenberg. Through you, just to touch on briefly what Councillor Andreessen said as well, I was hoping to pull item 3.6. And it's no secret that this has been in the news as of late, and I'll just be brief here. Again, I think we absolutely should be supporting this statement by the town of Fort Erie. In terms of statistics, I won't get into them, but there's a large amount of people that rely on their principal residence for their retirement plans. So I think that this is an absolutely awful idea, and we should be supporting the statement. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Rothwell is next.
Thanks very much, and good evening, Mayor Todd. I'd like to pull item 3.7, Perth County Federation of Agriculture concerning preservation of farmland, in particular the municipal zoning, minister's zoning order. Thank you.
Thank you. Any others, Clerk Bertels, that we're seeing? Okay, I think, I mean, I don't think we need to seek much more consent from council about each of those items. It sounds like there's several who would like to talk about a few of those things. So let's pull those at this point. Council, I think maybe to expedite our process here, we might be wiser just to begin a discussion about each of those items, and then we can wrap it all up with resolutions on those items and pull forward and finalize the consent agenda and minutes approval item at the end of our session, if that's all right. Maybe a little bit different than my usual practice, but we might as well give it a shot, see whether that moves things along. So let's begin with item 3.6, the letter from Fort Erie regarding capital gains. I know that a few of you are interested in this. Councillor Andreessen, since you asked first to pull, perhaps we'll ask you to offer some comments to set stage for us. Go ahead, please. We think you're on mute, Councillor Andreessen.
Sorry. Thank you through you, Mayor Kasenberg. I feel strongly that the capital gains exemption is extremely important for those who've made large investments into their primary residences. And as Councillor Anstead had noted, it is a huge source of income for retirement for those who are finishing up their careers at the end. And I feel that Fort Erie has put, I think it's a good idea to put a letter together and send that off to the provincial government and just stating our concerns and stating that we would not support any changes to the current exemptions for capital gains. That's how I feel at this time. Perhaps other councillors could add to that. Thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else want to pick up this theme? Are we seeing any other indication? Okay. Councillor Anstead, another comment there?
Yeah, thanks again, Mayor Kasenberg, through you. And like Councillor Andreessen said, I'm hopeful that council will support this as well. In terms of, I mentioned earlier, I don't think it's a very good idea in terms of savings. 39% of Canadians from a survey published as recently as 2020 have no retirement savings. In addition to that, the ones that do have retirement savings, a large majority of them have it tied up in their principal residence. So aside from this being devastating for a lot of homeowners, it's going to be devastating for a lot of people that have already sold their homes and are maybe looking to buy something else. So again, I would just look for council support on this to make sure that we get a very strongly worded letter to the federal government. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else want to speak to that one? All right, so I'm sensing the possibility of a resolution that will lend support to the Fort Erie resolution. It probably reads something like this: that Council of the Municipality of North Perth support the resolution presented to this council by the Council of the Town of Fort Erie regarding capital gains tax matters, and send a letter to Prime Minister, the federal finance minister, I'm going to assume, I would assume as well, our federal MP, Mr. Nader, and perhaps as a courtesy, we send to the Premier's office, send to Mr. Pettipiece's office. We want to send this to the other municipalities to show that we're in, and to all other municipalities in Ontario. Does it seem to resonate with your intent, Councillor Andreessen and Councillor Anstead?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Yes, I would agree, Mayor Kasenberg. Thank you.
Sounds good. Okay, so we have a resolution. I kind of worded it. I'm trusting Danette to do her magic at her end. Let's see. With regards to moving, Councillor Andreessen, would you be our mover for that one?
Yes, I'll make that motion. Thank you.
And Councillor Anstead, it kind of fits perfectly with the alphabetical thing here. Councillor Anstead, will you be our seconder?
Yes, I would. Thank you.
All right. Any further discussion or debate on this one from council? We're not seeing any, so I'm hoping Danette has caught up with me. She's so good. Let's see what we got. And that is unanimously carried. Thank you very much. Next up then is the optometrist item, item 3.8. And I'm not sure, my memory is short now. I'm not sure who about that. I guess Councillor Andreessen, you raised that one too, I think, right? And Deputy Mayor Kellum, so interested in this matter. So why don't, Councillor Andreessen, why don't we let Deputy Mayor Kellum have the first crack at this one, and I'll come back to you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Kasenberg. Yes, I think this letter needs to, or request needs to be addressed, as it's stated, and it's been more than 30 years, 3 decades since they've really did anything with this, funding. I think it was around 14% or something, she explained here. And she's concerned that the children, the seniors, people that have certain eye problems, disability is going to be impacted the most. So, but like I said earlier, I think September 1st is coming rather quickly. So if we could take a look at take a look at that. I would appreciate someone to support this. And again, sent to the appropriate people, whether it's finance, Councillor or Randy Pettipies, John Nader, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor Kellum. Councillor Andreessen, did you want in on this one?
Sure, thank you. I support what Deputy Mayor Kellum has said. That's great. Thank you.
Okay. Any other councillors wishing to have comment on this particular matter? Okay, we're not seeing any, so I'm going to go to the text of the letter to some degree. I think the resolution, if there is an intent here, is that the Council and Municipality of North Perth communicate with the provincial government, inviting it to address the OHIP insured eye care immediately and enter into legally binding negotiations with Ontario optometrists to fund these services at least to the cost of delivery prior to any job action taking place, and further that a copy of this resolution be sent to the Premier of Ontario, the Minister of Health, the Minister of Finance, MPP Randy Pettipies, I think Mr. Nader, our MP, as a courtesy, and to all other Ontario municipalities. Does that sort of meet your expectations, Deputy Mayor? Would that work, you think?
That is just fine. Thank you.
Okay, so let me ask then, we'll give you double duty here, Doug. Will you serve as our mover for that one?
Yes, I will make that motion.
Thank you. And Leanne, will you second that one?
Yes, I'll second that motion. Thank you.
Okay, are there any discussion or debate? I know that was a fast read for Deputy Clerk Pierce, so again, we'll keep our fingers crossed. She's so good. All right, we're seeing a declaration of a potential conflict. Councillor Rothwell, did you want to declare that now?
Yes, sorry for the late notice, Mayor Todd. Our son-in-law works at a local vision clinic, so I'll declare on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so Councillor Rothwell is out, and Councillor Seiler, I think, is out of this one, right? Okay, just taking my own notes here. Excuse me while I do that. Any further discussion or debate on this one? All right. I will say that I too have concerns about the fact that there has been little movement in the remuneration compensation of optometrists in Ontario over the space of 2, if not 3 generations now, and I think this needs to get addressed. So I am in support of this. Let's have that vote. And I think that covers it with, yeah, there we are. Okay, that covers it with our abstentions for pecuniary interest. So that is carried. Thank you very much. Let's turn to item 3.7 then. This is the letter from the Perth County Federation of Agriculture. I think its primary target was the County of Perth Council, but certainly they've shared this message with other lower tier councils. And Councillor Rothwell, did you want to pick up on this one?
Thank you, Mayor Todd. And yes, I certainly understand Perth Federation of Agriculture's concern regarding this matter, and specifically Perth East's desire to have a minister's zoning order on lands that are in the agriculture designation, in particular, some 30 hectares for industrial development nowhere near full municipal services in Perth East. I understand County Council has been asked to support this, but has deferred this matter. Frankly, from a planning background, this application or request to the minister makes little or no sense given the proximity of services in Perth East, and frankly, the claim that it's going to take time to allow for the development to occur is a moot point because frankly, the developers or owners in this case should have started making those applications some time ago if they were planning on moving forward. Agricultural land should be used for agricultural purposes, and we haven't talked about this matter with our county councillors, but given the letter, I think that we should at least acknowledge the Perth Federation of Agriculture that we have received that matter and do understand their concerns. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. By way of update, County Council did consider this matter at its last meeting on Thursday of last week, and the resolution that was brought forward by Deputy Warden Eggetts was withdrawn by Deputy Warden Eggetts after this matter was discussed with Council in session. So it no longer appears to be pending. There's a request of the county, at least, to support the application of an MZO for this purpose. But certainly it was on the agenda, and I think we're grateful for all inputs here. I'm not sure what resolution or motion might be appropriate given that news update, but I'd entertain any suggestions. Did you want to express appreciation to the Perth County Federation of Agriculture for their engagement with this issue? Would that be an appropriate resolution?
Mayor Todd, I'd be willing to make that motion. I think that's all that's required given your news. Thank you very much.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, try that again, Pat. Okay, so the resolution is going to look something like this. The county or the corporation of the municipality of North Perth receives the letter from Perth County Federation of Agriculture for information, and further that it expresses appreciation for the Perth County Federation of Agriculture engaging in this issue. Does that seem fair? Councillor Rothwell, you want to be the supporter of that resolution?
I so move. Yes.
Thank you. And Councillor Johnston, I'm going to guess maybe that's of interest to you. So would you like to be the seconder?
I would love to second this, and I think it's a very well done and well written letter from Perth Federation of Agriculture, and we should thank them for keeping the farming and agriculture interest at the forefront and keeping our land that we can farm it.
Agreed. That was my initial read on that too, Councillor Johnston, is that it was well written, well considered. Thank you. Any discussion or debate? No, we're not seeing any. So if Deputy Clerk Beer is with us, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you very much. I'm kind of scattered all over my councillor map for resolutions tonight, so I'm going to have to catch up somehow. Next then is let's deal with the receipt and approval of council minutes. We have a resolution that I think is appropriate now, that consent items 3.1 to 3.9 be received for information and the minutes of the July 19th, 2021 regular council meeting be adopted. Councillor Behrens, will you serve as our mover for that one?
Yes, I will make that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Duncan, will you be our seconder?
I'll second that.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or debate on that one? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Hey, sometimes the consent agenda is exciting. And tonight it apparently was. So that's interesting. All right. Thank you, Council. We have at this time no public meetings scheduled tonight. We have no delegations that have petitioned to present to Council this evening, which allows us to skip over item 4 on our agenda, and that moves us along to item 5. That brings us to reports from departments and key staff. We have no reports this evening from the CAO's department for this meeting, but I can assure you, because he and I have been working hard together on certain files, that he's been very busy, and his department as well. Let me move forward to item 5.2, reports from the Clerks department. At this time, we have a few land planning matters. The format in some ways is changing here with land planning matters, the way that these are being done, which is interesting. So let's tackle item 5.2.1. Council is invited to formulate a recommendation to the Council of the County of Perth or its delegate, I think it's Land Division actually, on an application for consent to sever from Bob Ross Innes and Delford Cressman, which intends to create a lot line adjustment between two agricultural properties in Adelaide Township using this severance approach. I'm going to call on Mr. Yilmaz, our North Perth planner with the County of Perth, to explain the application's intent and answer any questions from council. Mr. Yilmaz, as always, welcome.
Thank you, and good evening, Mayor Kaysenberg, members of council. The applicant, on behalf of the property owner of the subject lands, have applied for a consent to sever an area of agricultural land located at 6142 line 84 for the purpose of a lot line adjustment in the form of a lot addition with the adjacent property to the north. The subject property currently has an area of approximately 22.5 hectares or 55.6 acres with frontage along line 84. The subject property is primarily composed of active agricultural land and contains an existing farm dwelling with several accessory buildings previously used for farm machinery parts and sales and service establishment. However, this use is no longer in operation. The Maitland River bisects the farm lot near the north end of the property, running east-west across the site and disconnects the lands north of the river from the balance of the farmlands south of the river. This consent application is requesting to sever the area of land north of the river and add it with the farm property to the north, located at 6217 Perth Line 86. If these lands are added to the abutting property, it appears the benefiting lands will have direct and unobstructed access with the proposed severed land. The consent sketch submitted with the application illustrates a proposed severed area of approximately 4.2 hectares or 10.4 acres. The water course will form the boundary of the new lot line. If removed, the retained lands will have a new lot area of 18.3 hectares or 45.2 acres, and the benefiting parcel will have a new lot area of approximately 43.1 hectares or 106 acres. The frontage of the retained lands and the benefiting property are unaffected by the severance. The proposed consent application is considered a lot line adjustment and does not propose to create a new individual lot of record. Section 2.3.4.2 of the provincial policy statement states that lot adjustments in prime agricultural areas may be permitted for legal or technical reasons. The area of land proposed to be severed from the subject property has been noted to have access challenges as a result of the river. If the severed land is joined with the resultant property, the severed lands can be efficiently accessed. The subject property is largely within the agricultural designation of the County of Perth official plan. A portion of the property is within the natural resource environment designation, which applies to the woodlands bounding the Maitland River. Additionally, a small area of land is within the mineral aggregate resource designation, which indicates a potential for aggregate resources. Section 5.6.2.2 of the County of Perth official plan provides criteria and requirements for lot enlargements containing farmland and requires clauses A through E of section 5621 are met. This includes that farming is the existing or intended use, that the size of each lot is appropriate, and that MDS 1 and MDS 2 setbacks are met. Additionally, general consent policies applicable to all land use designations are listed in section 16.3 of the County OP. The application has been reviewed with these policies and the application satisfies the requirements. It is the opinion of staff that the proposed severance conforms with the County of Perth official plan. Staff have no objection to the proposed consent to sever a parcel of land for the purpose of a lot addition. Conditions of consent have been included to ensure the proposed severance is completed to the satisfaction of the municipality of North Perth and to the County of Perth, and that the severed parcel is merged with the abutting property. The application is consistent with the Provincial Policy Statement 2020, conforms with the applicable policies of the County of Perth official plan, and represents good planning. As such, it is staff's recommendation that North Perth Council receive the staff report and that North Perth Council recommend that County of Perth Land Division Committee or its designate approve the application for consent to sever, number B1521. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yilmaz. Council, any first comments or questions on this matter? We're not seeing anything. Okay, so have this resolution to read is enormously long. That's the nature now of planning resolutions. That's my guess. That reads as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth received the report entitled Application for Consent to Sever, number B15-21, by Bob Ross Innes, Delford Cressman, applicant, Katie DeBlock, Boersma, agent, affecting lands described as Lot 26, Concession 1, Elma Ward, Municipality of North Perth, 6142, line 84, dated August 9th, 2021, for information. And that the Council recommends that the County of Perth Land Division Committee or its designate approve the application for consent to sever, number B15-21, described as Lot 26, Concession 1, Elma Ward, Municipality of North Perth, 6142, line 84, subject to the following conditions. Any conditions: that confirmation be received from a solicitor that the certificate of the official will be scanned and attached to the electronic registration of the transfer. 2, that the county be provided with a description that is consistent with the application and equal to that required for registration of a deed transfer or other conveyance of interest in land under the provision of the Registry Act or Land Titles Act. 2 copies of registered reference plan required, and an electronic file containing the digital plotting of the description under the provision of the Registry Act or Land Titles Act, including the textual description of file format, map standards used, scale, and location information, such as lot, concession, and municipality in a geo-referenced AutoCAD.dwg format. Alternatively, the committee being provided with an order pursuant to Section 150 of the Land Titles Act RSO 1990 or Section 80 of the Land Registry Act RSO 1990 issued by a land registrar, exempting the transfer from the requirement that a reference plan be deposited. If it has been determined that the subject property is a whole lot on an original township plan of survey and an exemption order cannot be provided by a land registrar, satisfactory proof of same shall be provided by a solicitor with confirmation stating the reason why an exemption order cannot be provided. North Perth conditions: that confirmation be received by the Perth County Land Division Committee Secretary Treasurer, that the notice sign and sign frame posted on the subject property have been returned to the issuing municipality within 30 days of the decision of the Land Division Committee. If this notice sign is not returned, confirmation must be received that a replacement sign fee of $100 has been paid to the issuing municipality prior to the final consent approval. And 4, that the solicitor's undertaking be received, which shall be to the effect at the time of the registration of the transfer to which the certificate under Section 53, subsection 42 of the Planning Act 1990 is affixed. The names of the owners of the abutting land to which this parcel is being joined is the same as the transferees in the said transfer. Item 5, that a solicitor's undertaking be received by the County of Perth Land Division Committee, which shall be to the effect that the severed parcel be added as a lot addition to the abutting parcel described as lots 25 and 26, Concession 1, Elma Ward, as in R229212, 6217 Perth line 86, Municipality of North Perth, currently owned by James and Lori Weaver, and that Section 50, subsection 3 or subsection 5 of the Planning Act RSO 1990 shall apply to any subsequent conveyance or transfer of the severed parcel, and the certificates under Section 53, subsection 42 of the Planning Act RSO 1990 shall contain reference to this stipulation. That confirmation be received from a solicitor that the resultant lot, severed land, and the land to which it is being added will be encumbered by any mortgages as one lot at the time of registration of transfer, or that there are no outstanding mortgages or encumbrances on the lands to be consolidated. 7, that an undertaking be received from a solicitor that the parcels will be consolidated under land titles onto one PIN. 8, that confirmation be received from the municipality of North Perth that all financial requirements have been met, if any. 9, that confirmation be received from the municipality of North Perth that all taxes have been paid in full. And 10, confirmation be received from the municipality of North Perth that the apportionment schedule for municipal drains in this area be reviewed and updated if necessary to the satisfaction of the municipality of North Perth in accordance with section 65.1 of the Drainage Act RSO to show that the applicant will be responsible for all costs associated with this reapportionment. Now, Councillor Johnston, no, I'm not rereading that. That was once was enough. Thank you. And please don't claim parliamentary privilege in that either. Next, we need a mover for that. Councillor Richardson, will you serve as our mover for that one?
Yes, I'll make that motion. Thank you.
Oh, okay. That sounds good. Councillor Richardson, will you serve as the seconder?
I will gladly second that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that one is carried. Thank you very much. Next up then is item 5.2.2. In this one, council is in receipt of a report from the planning service of the County of Perth pertaining to an earlier made request for the severance of single-family dwelling from a larger lot of Woodview Drive in Atwood. Council may recall deferring this matter so that staff could respond to a request from the applicant suggesting a strategy different than that advocated by the planner. This matter is still represented as an opportunity for this council to offer its opinion to the County of Perth's Land Division Committee or its delegate. At this time, then I'm going to invite Sean Yilmaz from the County of Perth, the planner here, to give us an update on this report. Mr. Yilmaz, welcome again.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. So yes, as you may recall, I presented a summary of a proposed development to this council on July 19th, 2021, which was submitted by Patterson Planning Consultants and located at 302 Woodview Drive in Atwood. The proposed development aims to sever an existing residential dwelling from the larger property and consists of an application for consent to sever and an application for a zoning bylaw amendment. The application ultimately proposes to sever the existing residential dwelling to create a new lot. However, the severed lot as proposed does not have public road frontage or access. Section 17.2.6 of the County of Perth official plan requires that new development shall have frontage on and access to a public road. Additionally, section 5.8 of the North Perth zoning bylaw states that no lot shall be created and no person shall erect a building or structure unless the lot abuts or fronts on a public road of satisfactory construction and maintenance to permit the reasonable and safe passage of motor vehicles. The policies and regulations that guide land use in North Perth require new lots to have direct access with the public road for several reasons, including access for fire and emergency vehicles, as well as snow management in the winter months. In order to satisfy the requirements of the official plan and the zoning bylaw, planning staff feel Woodview Drive should be extended to provide public road frontage and direct access to a public road for the existing dwelling. During the review of the development proposal with North Perth Council on the July 19th, 2021 meeting, an alternative approach was discussed, which would extend Woodview Drive 3 meters northward to provide 3 meters of public road frontage for the severed lands. This approach, which is the preferred approach by the applicant, will also require the registration of an access easement over the retained lands, as the proposed residential lot will maintain the existing driveway to access the dwelling. The easement is required as the driveway will subsequently cross over the retained lands, which could be in different ownership following the severance. North Perth Council ultimately supported the applicant's request to consider the alternative approach and requested planning staff prepare a list of conditions to achieve this. These conditions could then assist in this council's recommendation to County Land Division Committee in support of the alternative option. As such, the additional conditions that have been drafted include a condition to rezone the severed and retained lands to capture any deficiency and place the severed lands into a residential zone. A condition that would require Woodview Drive to be extended by a linear distance no less than 3 meters, and opened as a public road to the satisfaction of the municipality. A condition that ensures appropriate road construction and maintenance and snow removal of Woodview Drive has been addressed to the satisfaction of the municipality. And the condition that requires the registration of an easement on title of the retained lot in favor of the severed lot to provide public road access using the driveway, using the existing driveway. I do want to note that the County of Perth Planning staff recommendation has not changed and will move to Land Division Committee with the conditions as discussed at the last meeting. These conditions are noted in the staff report and essentially requires lands to be conveyed to the municipality to extend Woodview Drive and be maintained as a year-round public road. Planning staff's main concern with the alternative approach is the unknowns associated with access to the residential property for emergency vehicles, as well as the obligation of snow removal on the access easement. The official plan access policies are in place to ensure that these issues do not arise when considering new development, such as lot creation. As the area of the easement is on lands that are under private ownership, it is unclear whose responsibility it will be to ensure that snow is removed, to ensure snow is removed. The goal of the condition staff have recommended is to avoid issues of access to the residential lot for both the property owner and emergency vehicles. However, at the last meeting, North Perth Council were supportive of the alternative approach and requested conditions to support that request. As such, these conditions were drafted and included in the motion for Council to consider tonight. Now, while preparing this report and drafting the conditions, County of Perth planning staff thought of another potential option that Council may wish to consider. If the existing driveway must be used, as per the applicant's request, staff proposed an option for consent conditions that would require the conveyance of lands to the municipality for the purpose of a future road allowance, which would extend from the end of Woodview Drive to the existing entrance of the proposed severed lot. The owners of the severed and retained lots would remain responsible for ongoing maintenance of the laneway and continued uninterrupted access to each lot. However, with the appropriate agreement in place, the municipality is protected from liability. If this option is selected, the conditions would satisfy the official plan policies for frontage requirement, as the lot would then front onto a road allowance owned by a public authority. Using this approach, the laneway will continue to provide direct access to Woodview Drive. Under this option, staff are of the opinion that the intent of the official plan and access policies are satisfied. Now, my intent was not to confuse council with all these options. However, I felt it was prudent to provide some alternatives. As such, there are essentially three options that have been presented to North Perth Council. North Perth Council can either choose to go with the original staff recommendation, go with the alternative approach as requested by the applicant, or this third option that was just noted by staff. For simplicity, the motion for council to consider, however, is whether or not to support the option as requested by the applicant with the conditions I noted earlier and as identified as option 2 in the staff report. If council does not support this option, and then these other two options are available for consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gomez. I have one just clarifying question. So the recommendation that this council makes, is that what Land Division is going to see, or is it going to see the original recommendation, which was that 20 meters of road be constructed?
Thank you for the question. So the report going to Land Division Committee will still, the staff report will still be the original staff, or excuse me, the staff recommendation will still be the original staff recommendation. If this council elects to go with the second option, for example, then that would be noted as North Perth's recommendation to Land Division Committee, and it would also be noted in the staff report that I prepared to Land Division Committee as well.
Thank you. I just wanted clarity on that. That's helpful. All right, council, there are essentially three options before us at this time. I think Mr. Yilmaz has tried to keep it fairly straightforward in terms of explaining those three options to us. I would entertain questions and first comments on this matter at this time, remembering that what sits before me actually is what council asked for last time, which was a draft of a resolution that would affect the 3-meter frontage on Woodview Drive. That's I have in front of you option 2, I believe that is, of the 3 options. So let's hear from you, Clerk Berkels, who's first? Councillor Barons is first. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg, and thank you, John, for providing an update to the report. I think personally that the planning department has done an excellent job in option 3 of providing both the municipality what they require as well as the applicant what they require. In reviewing all of the data from the 2 reports, I personally support option 3. Thank you.
Councillor Rothwell is next.
Thank you, Mayor Todd, and thank you, Sean, for the report. I agree with Councillor Barons regarding the option 3, which has been presented. I'd like to know, Planner Yilmaz, whether or not that has been discussed and it's acceptable to the applicant's agent. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Rothwell. So it was discussed quite late with the applicant. The applicant, from my understanding, is still supportive of the second option. And I believe they are on the line in case there were some questions.
Okay. Does anyone on council, we know that Mr. Patterson is with us in case there were questions. Does anyone on council object to hearing from Mr. Patterson in terms of answering that question? I'm not seeing anything. So Mr. Patterson, welcome to our meeting. I think council would like to hear what you'd be prepared to entertain at this point.
Good evening, Mayor Kasenberg, members of council. Thank you for the opportunity. Excuse me. Naturally, we're here in support of option 2, outlined in the staff report, because that was what was discussed at the July 19th meeting. And I believe that was the direction of council at that time. The third option, which Sean has alluded to, I was not aware of until Friday, and I briefly discussed with him this afternoon as well. We're not in favor of that. I have spoke with the Buchanans, and the conveyance of that amount of land to the municipality at this time is just not realistic. The timing of that would come when the remainder of the lands was developed, and the nature of the roadway design related works, everything could be completed at that time. So yes, I can suggest to you that the Buchanans are not in favor of option 3. There's a very good chance the project will just lapse, or if Land Division Committee approves that option, then we may be forced to other measures, but it is not supported by the applicants at this time.
Thank you. Other first comments or questions about this matter? I'm not seeing anything at this point in time. So now we have the dilemma, council, ahead of us. In front of me, I have the resolution that would affect the solution that the applicant would prefer, which is option 2. I've heard 2 councillors comment on this already, that they are in favor of option 3. And we've heard the applicant say that option 3 is not acceptable to the applicant. So I would be interested in hearing from council about your wishes with regards to how we proceed. I could put one of 3 resolutions on the floor, and I'd like to know which one, so that I don't have to read the phone book here. Councillor Richardson.
Thank you. As Mr. Patterson has alluded to before, that the option 2 was agreed to be discussed and proposed at the July 19th meeting. I tend to agree with that one. I also agree that the amount of conveyance it's going to be for option 3 might be significant and delay everything, but As it stands now, from what I have heard, that I'm in support of what is proposed for option 2. That's me, my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to suggest an approach that we move forward with here? Councillor Andreessen, would you like to offer some comment on this one?
Thank you through you, Mayor Kasenberg. I have to agree with Councillor Richardson. I just have concerns because although I actually like option 3, I think it's late in the game. And I think that the applicant was already kind of, in tune to perhaps option 1 and option 2, and all of a sudden we're throwing an option 3 now. And I just have concerns from a procedural perspective that it's a bit late in the game. So, it's unfortunate. I do like option 3, but I feel like it perhaps isn't fair at this stage, but that's my feeling at this time. Thank you.
Anyone else want to suggest a path forward here? Which resolution would you like to have? I got 2 for 2, and I've got 2 for 3, and Councillor Seiler, where would you like to be?
Thank you, Mayor Todd. I'm going to be option 2 myself. I think that this can be done, and hopefully that thing will all follow through in the right way. And in order to get this project moving, I think that's the way we have to go. Thank you. Option 2.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Kellum next.
Yes, option 2 for me as well. Thank you.
Councillor Barons, another shot at this.
No, just that I will not support option 2 since it is not in conformity with the official plan requirements. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks, Mayor Todd. I just want to go back to Councillor Andreessen's point about being late in the game. The clear indication is that it's the county's land division committee or that's going to be making a determination on this application. And frankly, it's not until such time as they make the decision as to whether or not this matter is going to be approved or not. And I think the issue at hand is, as Councillor Barons pointed out, is conformity to the official plan. And I think as we move forward here is that the option, the newest option, which has been brought forward, and unfortunately it wasn't until relatively late in the game, is still, was prior to this meeting. So it's not something that was drafted up quickly as we were, thought that maybe it could be discussed between the applicant and our planner back on July the 19th. Additional time was spent to come up with an option which I think does cover off the issues, and I'll be supporting 3 and certainly hope that council will see the merit in conforming with the official plan. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a few who are for option 3, and we have a few who are for option 2. Councillor Duncan, I'd love to have you weigh in, Councillor Duncan.
I just actually have a question for Sean. It says in his report it wouldn't meet the official plan policy, but last meeting when we discussed adding the 3 meters, it sounded as though it would have met the official plan policy. If he was to move the driveway onto that 3 meters and enter the property there, would it then meet the official plan policy?
So thanks for the question, Councillor Duncan. Yeah, that was the original intent of this proposed solution of the 3 meters, was that the road would be extended 3 meters, which would be a sufficient amount to accommodate a driveway to the property. If the existing driveway wanted to be used to get to the garage, then that's something that was kind of considered as separate. The idea was that you'd have the new access point and you'd have the frontage. But then when looking at it further and kind of looking at it with the frontage being there, but not the access, and then thinking about why we actually have these policies, that's when we kind of noticed that there could be some concerns with the future access to the site. Now they are both in the same property, but we're kind of looking at it from the best case scenario and the cleanest way of doing it. And this is how we kind of came up with that.
Anyone else want to weigh in? Okay, I think we've heard to this point slightly more are tempted by option 2, which was the one that the applicant favors, and that's the one that's sitting in front of me here. So, you know, we can put it to the test by putting it on the floor if council will consent to that at this point. So let's try it out, see what happens. Here's the resolution. The council recommends that the County of Perth Land Division Committee or its delegate approve the application for consent to sever number B11-21 for lands described as part lots 16 and 17, concession 8, Ward 302 Woodview Drive, Atwood, Municipality of North Perth, subject to the following conditions. County conditions: 1, that confirmation be received from a solicitor that the certificate of the official will be scanned and attached to the electronic registration of the transfer. 2, the Land Division Committee be provided with a description that is consistent with the application and equal to that required for registration of a deed, transfer, or other conveyance of interest in land under the provision of the Registry Act or Land Titles Act. 2 copies of registered reference plan required, and an electronic file containing the digital plotting of the description under the provision of the Registry Act or Land Titles Act, including the textual description of file format, map standards used, scale and location information such as lot, concession, and municipality in a geo-referenced AutoCAD.DWG format. Alternatively, the committee to be provided with an order pursuant to Section 150 of the Land Titles Act RSO 1990 or Section 80 of the Land Registry Act RSO 1990 issued by a land registrar exempting the transfer from the requirement that a reference plan be deposited. If it has been determined that the subject property is a whole lot on an original township plan of survey and an exemption order cannot be provided by a land registrar, satisfactory proof of same shall be provided by a solicitor with confirmation stating the reason why an exemption order cannot be provided. Local municipality conditions: that confirmation be received from the municipality of North Perth that all financial requirements have been met, if any. 4, that confirmation be received from the municipality of North Perth that all taxes have been paid in full. 5, that confirmation be received from the municipality of North Perth that the apportionment schedule for municipal drains in this area be reviewed and updated if necessary to the satisfaction of the municipality of North Perth in accordance with Section 65.1 of the Drainage Act RSO to show that the applicant will be responsible for all costs associated with this reapportionment. 6, that confirmation be received from the municipality of North Perth that an approved zoning bylaw amendment has been obtained to place the severed land, the residential lot, in the appropriate residential zone and recognize any deficiencies, minimum lot frontage, re-equipment to the satisfaction of the municipality. 7, that confirmation be received from the municipality of North Perth that Woodview Drive is extended by a linear distance, no less than 3 meters, and opened as a public road to the satisfaction of the municipality. 8, that confirmation be received from the municipality of North Perth Public Works Department that appropriate road construction and maintenance, snow removal of Woodview Drive has been addressed to the satisfaction of the municipality. 9, that an undertaking be received from a solicitor that an easement has been registered on title of the retained lot in favor of the severed lot to provide public road access using the existing driveway as identified on the reference plan to be deposited and registered. And 10, that confirmation be received from the municipality of North Perth that both the severed and retained lots have been assigned a municipal address and that the municipal address signs have been posted to the satisfaction of the municipality of North Perth. All costs associated with new signage and posting of same will be the responsibility of the applicants. That is the entire text of that resolution. Can I call on Councillor Seiler to be our mover?
Yes, I'll move.
Thank you. Councillor Andreessen, you inclined to second this?
Yes, I'll second it. Thank you.
Thanks. All right. Now, opportunity for further discussion. We are talking, this is option 2, the applicant's preferred solution. Let's hear any further comments about this. Perfels, have we got anything? We haven't got anything. I'll make one comment, and the comment is that I do have concern that Mr. Yilmaz has raised that the planning staff is not in favor of option 2, in part because it is perceived that it is not in alignment with the official plan. And I have found in my work so far that sticking with the advice of the planners has been a pretty good and reliable effort, as much as I am inclined to admit that the approach here suggested by the applicant is certainly well thought out and could at least potentially meet the requirement. I find myself quite uncomfortable with the fact that the planning department is not that enthusiastic about this. Let's put it that way. And on balance, I'm really struggling with how to vote on that because of that matter. As I said, I have made it a general practice both here and at the county to support what the planners have to say because they know their business. And I find myself worried that I might be called upon here to make a decision, which is difficult. Sorry to hear that. We are connected with the high-speed connection, Mr. Richardson, so I'm hoping that it's getting a little bit better. Anyone else have any comments? Maybe Councillor Richardson, that's a function of head down. I don't know. Lesson learned. Councillor Johnston, would you like to weigh in?
Thank you, Mayor Todd. And I'm with you on this, that I'm a bit torn that I do realize option 2 is the preferred for the applicant. But I also really agree with Councillor Bearns' opinion that option 2 doesn't conform to the official plan, and I realize option 3 is a better one that way, but not for the applicant. So I'm with you that I'm quite torn on this one, and I can see both options working. I'm just not sure which one is the better one.
Councillor Andreessen?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Kasenberg. Is there anything that the planner, Sean Yilmaz, could do in terms of conditions with option 2 to somehow make it work with the official plan? I don't know, the legislation enough about this, but I just wondered if anything more could be done with option 2 to, fit those needs. Thank you.
Mr. Yilmaz, that puts some pressure on you.
When we were trying to review it, I think that's what our third option really was trying to kind of have that balance of not requiring a full road, but still requiring that road access. The second option, which uses an access easement, it's really, from the staff perspective, it's just really not the intent of the policies. And I mean, there could potentially be a way there could be an agreement in place, but it just seems from the policy perspective that if the existing driveway was to be used in the third option kind of checks the boxes rather than the second option.
Thank you, Mr. Yilmaz. Anyone else want to comment at this point in time? All right, we're not seeing any further comments, so let's have that vote. So that's great. All right, so looks to me from the vote count that is carried. Thank you. That was a tricky one. I admit the clerk is chuckling at me here. I think that was a very interesting exercise of our understanding of planning and our responsibilities. Thank you, Mr. Yilmaz, for all your work. Mr. Patterson, thank you for joining us tonight. Guess we can move forward. That means next up is item 5.2.3. Council here is asked to approve an application for an amendment to the Listual Ward official plan through an amendment OPA 34 that contemplates some adjustments to support conformity with provincial legislation that has been enacted around the subject matter of additional residential units. There's probably a lot more to it than that, so I'm going to ask Mr. Yilmaz to give us a good overview of this one. Welcome again.
Thank you again. So if council can recall, on Monday, June 21st, 2021, a statutory public meeting was held to discuss proposed amendments to the Listual Ward official plan, the policy document that guides land use for Listual. The draft proposed official plan amendment, also known as OPA 34, contains two separate sections, which are identified as Item 1 and Item 2. Item 1 is intended to update existing transportation policies through the recognition of collector roads as an additional road classification in Listual. This will also update Schedule B roads plan for the Listual Ward to reclassify a portion of Wallace Avenue South between Main Street and Line 84 as a collector road, downgraded from an arterial road. Item 2 is intended to update policies pertaining to additional dwelling units, also known as secondary dwelling units, in all residential zones in the Listual Ward that are currently permitted by the County of Perth official plan, and to update language of the Listual Ward official plan text to remain consistent with the language of the provincial policy statement. A staff report was prepared and provided to council ahead of the public meeting, and a summary was provided to council at the June 21st meeting. A member of council requested additional information regarding traffic counts that support the reclassification of Wallace Avenue South between Main Street West and Line 84 to a collector road. A neighborhood traffic study prepared by Paradigm was provided to council and was attached to this report. Table 1 of the traffic study provides the observed speeds and 24-hour data on Wallace Avenue South. Additionally, page 10 of the document includes a road classification review and provides rationale for introducing the collector road classification and downgrading this portion of Wallace Avenue South. It is important to note that the reclassification will not impact the existing traffic patterns or day-to-day function of Wallace Avenue South. Instead, reclassification of the roadway will ensure the road continues to function in its current state and enable the municipality to implement safety measures such as traffic calming. Since the public meeting, the proposed text for the official plan amendment OPA 34 has not changed, and staff is not in a position to bring forward a recommendation for council consideration. The proposed official plan amendment is consistent with the provincial policy statement and conforms with the policies in the County of Perth official plan. As such, it is staff's recommendation that council approve the official plan amendment, also known as OPA 34, as initiated by the municipality. If you have any questions about the amendment text, I'd be happy to go through that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yilmaz. Council, any questions or first comments on this matter? Okay, we're not seeing any at this time. So I have a couple of resolutions here, one bylaw, one resolution. But let's deal with these in order. The first is that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth approved the application for an official plan amendment OPA 34 affecting lands in the Listual Ward. The amendment is consistent with the provincial policy statement 2020 and conforms to the policies of the County of Perth official plan. Councillor Anstead, will you serve as our mover for that one?
Yes, I would move that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Behrens, will you be our seconder?
Yes, I will. Thank you.
Thanks. Any discussion or debate on that one? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. And then the next is the bylaw, that bylaw number 86-2021, being a bylaw to amend the official plan for the Listual award, be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed, and the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Can I call on Councillor Duncan to be our mover for that?
Yes, I'll move that.
Thank you. And Deputy Mayor Callum, will you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I'll second that motion. Thank you.
Thanks. Any discussion or debate on the bylaw? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And we're waiting for one. There it is. And that, with that, it's carried. Thank you. Let's move forward. Mr. Yilmaz, thank you for all of your work tonight, and give our best regards to the planning team that supports all of this. Next up then is item 5.2.4. Staff is presenting to council a report outlining options for undertaking engagement with our community about the possible methods that might be used by voters in the municipal election scheduled for October 24th, 2022. I'm going to ask the clerk to give a presentation, and I need to adjust my AV settings so we don't all end up in the black hole. Just hold on.
Council, I prepared a report for your consideration regarding the next municipal election to be held on October 24th, 2022. Traditionally, North Perth has voted using a composite ballot and tabulators. Tonight, I'm asking Council if they would like to utilize our Your Say North Perth website to obtain some input from the residents on how they would like to vote in the next election. As noted in my report, there are several ways identified that the municipality could proceed. At this time, I have not spent a lot of time on that research, but certainly willing to investigate as per the results of a survey or direction of North Perth Council. It's just here tonight for Council's consideration, and if the Council deems it appropriate, we'd be happy to move forward with the website.
Thank you, Clerk Perfelds. Questions or first comments on this report and its recommendation? Councillor Richardson first.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor Kasenberg. I think it's vitally important that the voting public have an opportunity to question how they are available to vote, especially when the technology does exist, in order to vote differently than the way that we've been doing it for such a long time. So I certainly think it would pose a question. They are being done in many other municipalities. And if you look at our voter turnout, which is incredibly low traditionally for any municipal election, if there's any possible avenue that we can do to increase the level of participation from our voting public, I think that should be greatly encouraged, and to find out what the public would want. So I would think putting this on Your Say North Perth would be of vital benefit to our electoral process. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Enstedt, you're next.
Thanks very much, Mayor Kasenberg. Through you. Thanks, Pat, for the report. I certainly agree with Councillor Richardson. Getting feedback from our voting public is certainly very important. I did just have one question, though, Pat. If we were to, now obviously this is down the road, if we were to move to another voting method, what would be the deadline for having that implemented in time for the October 2022 election? Thank you.
North Perth Council would be required to have made the decision and proceed with a bylaw for an alternate voting process by May of 2022.
Okay, thank you.
So we have some time on our hands. Anyone else on the list? No, we're not seeing any. So let's consider the resolution that's been drafted for us then. The Council of the Municipality of North Perth received the report dated August 9th, 2021 concerning voter engagement for information, I assume is the intent, and that Council authorized staff to pursue a community engagement initiative regarding vote counting equipment, alternative voting methods, and voting locations. Can I call on Councillor Richardson to be a mover for that?
I'd be glad to move that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Rothwell, would you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate on this? Councillor Rothwell, we think?
Yes, thanks very much, Mayor Todd. Just a question through to Clerk Barrefels. Pat, is it only going to be on your say North Perth, or will there be some other means for the non-electronic folks to give their opinion? Thank you.
Yes, very good question. And as per all of our surveys that we put on the municipal website, we always provide an opportunity for a paper comment or some way that others can vote if working on the computer is not necessarily their thing.
That's great. It's a great public service. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks. Anything else on this one? We're not seeing anything else, so let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you very much. That brings us to item 5.3, reports from the programs department. We have no reports coming from that department this evening, but they're deep in the midst of summer programming and good things are happening. Further, we have no reports from the facilities department as item 5.4. But again, I know lots is being done in the background to brace for some projects that lie ahead. All right, that allows us to turn to items from our finance department. Item 5.5 on our agenda. First, as item 5.5.1, finance staff has brought forward for council review the accounts as of this day, August 19th, 2021. I'll note that a few of our councillors have declared a potential pecuniary interest in this item and will be absenting themselves from consideration and voting. Are there any questions for staff about this report? Seeing none, I have a resolution that reads as follows. The following summary of accounts be received by council for information, and the bottom line total is $2,542,594.19. Can I call on Councillor Seiler to be our mover for this one?
Yes, I will move that. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Andreessen, will you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I'll second that motion. Thank you.
Thanks. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And I believe that means it's carried at this point. So that is carried. As item 5.5.2, council is presented with externally audited financial statements for the year 2020, prepared by our auditor, BDO Canada LLP, with an intent for a resolution that calls for their approval and adoption. I'm going to call on, I think, Frances Hale to introduce us to this report from BDO Canada and acknowledge that she has consent to call on Mr. Lightfoot or anyone else from BDO for necessary commentary. Let's start with Fran. Welcome, Ms. Hale.
Good evening, Mayor Kaysenberg, members of council. Tonight I'm pleased to have Robert Lightfoot, partner, BDO Canada LLP, with us. And I would ask him to take this opportunity to present to council his audit findings at this time. Over to you, Mr. Lightfoot.
Thank you, Fran. Thank you, Mayor and members of council, for having me tonight. We'll start with the independent auditor's report. And I will just quickly go through it. The first paragraph outlines the financial statements on which we are opining. And I'll just read the second paragraph, which is our actual opinion. In our opinion, the company's consolidated financial statements present fairly, in all material respects, the financial position of the municipality as at December 31st, 2020, the results of its operations, change in net debt and cash flows for the year then ended in accordance with Canadian public sector accounting standards. It goes on to describe the basis for opinion, which is basically that an audit was conducted in accordance with Canadian generally accepted auditing standards. There's a special emphasis of matter paragraph indicating that there was a restatement to some comparative information. And so there's some information on that, some details not in note 2. It goes on to remind the reader that the financial statements are actually the responsibility of management and those charged with governance. The next section goes on to describe our responsibilities and what's basically in general terms comprises an audit. And finally, it's dated August the 3rd, 2021 and signed by BDO Canada LLP. On to the financial statements proper, beginning with the consolidated statement of financial position. So here we are looking at the assets and liabilities of the municipality as at the end of the year, again with comparative figures for the preceding year. Financial statements prepared in accordance with public sector accounting standards are a little bit different than what you would normally see with private enterprise statements, in that they're organized according to financial assets and liabilities and working out to a net financial asset or net debt position, and then adding in non-financial assets, all arriving at the accumulated surplus or deficit as the case may be. As members of council, you're probably used to this format. So looking at the financial assets, again, we typically don't divide this into long-term and current. The financial assets total just under $40 million, comprised mostly of cash, but also accounts receivable and in particular grain receivables. Against those assets, there were liabilities outstanding at the end of the year in terms of accounts payable. So these are expenses that were incurred but not yet paid, a little over $3 million. Deferred revenue of just under $15 million. So this is money that's been received, but it's actually intended for future use when it's actually going to be spent. So we recognize it as revenue in a later year. Long-term debt of $25 million. So these, as the name suggests, these are loans that are outstanding for a long period of time. Solid waste closure and post-closure liabilities, a little over $2 million. So the idea here is that as you use up your landfills, there are costs that should be accruing that will be expended in future years to A, to close, and then B, to maintain the site after it's full. So we're trying to match those future expenses with current use. So those liabilities and deferred revenues total just under $45 million. So giving a net debt position of just over $5 million at the end of the year. And added to that are the non-financial assets, which are capital assets and prepaid expenses and inventories of supplies. Those total $154 million, and therefore the accumulated surplus recognized is just under $149 million at the end of the year. There's a reference here to contingent liabilities. So these are things that could end up being liabilities. We're unsure at this time, and there's some description of that in note 17. So the statement of financial position is followed by the statement of operations, in which we look at, summarize the revenues and expenses for the year. And in addition to having comparative figures for last year, which as noted have been slightly restated, we have comparison to the budget. And there's another note on that item in note 20. So we'll be looking at focusing on the center column of figures here, which is the actual results for 2020. Total revenues then were just under 36 million, comprised mainly, of course, of tax, government transfers, user fees, and other. The expenses against that income total just over 25 million. and they're listed there according to function, giving an annual surplus of just under $11 million. Adding in last year's accumulated surplus, adjusting for the aforementioned prior period adjustment, 2.5 million leaves an accumulated surplus at the end of the year of 149 million roughly, which we saw on the statement of financial position. The next statement is the statement of change in net debt, and basically what this statement does is it takes the accumulated the surplus for the year and it adjusts for the transactions in the non-financial assets to see what it would look like if they weren't accounted for in the way they are. So basically we add back the amortization of capital assets, and instead we expense the acquisition of capital assets and so forth, which is back how it was, back before 1987, I guess, when we started accounting for capital assets. So when you go through that process, you end up in a change in net debt. So, again, a change in the financial assets and liabilities of just under 1.5 million. And again, through the process of adding to the beginning of the year net debt gives us the end of the year net debt that we saw on the statement of financial position. Excuse me. That's followed by the statement of cash flows. So again, the idea here is to see the source and use of cash, and we use an indirect method whereby we start with the surplus for the year, then we add back or adjust for items that were used in arriving at that surplus that don't involve cash. So when the smoke clears from that methodology, you see the operations gave a positive cash flow of just under $15 million, but then about 14 million was plowed back into the acquisition of capital assets. And there was a small decrease in long-term receivables, down payment or repayment of long-term debt of 673,000. So overall, there was a decrease in cash equivalents of just under $93,000. Taking that away from the opening cash balance gave the ending cash balance that we saw on the statement of financial position. So the actual financial statements are followed by several pages of notes, which are designed to enhance your understanding and enjoyment of financial statements. Starts off with the list of significant accounting policies. So regardless of which accounting framework you use, there's always choices to be made in selection of accounting policies. So this is the place where those choices are disclosed. Of note, basis of consolidation. So this is just describing which local boards are included in these financial statements. So we have the BIA, the Cemetery Board, and the Library Board. And of note, trust funds are not included in here, and they are given their own separate financial statements. A little note on deferred revenue and what that is about. Same with solid waste closure and post-closure liabilities. Intangible capital assets, we're disclosing there the rates of depreciation that are used for those assets. A note on page 9 that the taxation collected on behalf of the County of Perth and school boards are not included in these statements. Beyond the significant accounting policies then, on page 10, note 2 describes the prior period adjustment and basically what's happened, and I think this is the second year in a row that we've discovered some, or I should say the municipality has discovered some capital assets that were excluded from the inventory of capital assets, and so we've added them in here. So about $2.5 million, which is about a little less than 3%, I guess, of the total capital assets of 150 million. Note 3 gives details on the cash and cash equivalents. Note 4 gives details on the long-term receivables. And the idea of this disclosure is to give an understanding of the terms of those receivables so you can gauge the future cash flows to be had by those. Note 5 describes the fact that there was a $1.1 million, $11 million temporary loan with Ontario Infrastructure last year, which got debentured. So you may have noticed that shift on the statement of financial position between the two lines, but in total, it's still there. Note 7 gives some detail on deferred revenue, so you'll see that the major components that are development charges and gas tax. There's also a note there on Perth Meadows deferred life lease revenue, how that's accounted for. Note 8 gives details on the long-term debt, again enabling the reader to gauge the future cash flows pertaining to those items. The end of note 8 on the following page, we disclose the anticipated repayments of long-term debt over the next 5 years and thereafter. Some details on the solid waste closure and post-closure liabilities and how those are calculated and some of the assumptions that are used in there, such as the discount rate. Because in calculating the future expenses and liability, we use discounted cash flow approach to that. So you give kind of an estimated present value of those expenses. Note 10 gives details on the capital assets. There's a continuity schedule for those. And by category, 11 gives the breakdown of the accumulated surplus at the end of the year. There are details in notes 12 and 13 on the government transfers. So first of all, the federal and then the provincial transfers, followed by some detail on the other income in note 14, the other income that we saw in the statement of operations. Note 15 takes those same expenses that we saw organized by function on the statement of operations and sorts them by object. Some further details on the taxes raised for the school board and the county, which are, as mentioned, excluded from these financial statements. A couple of notes on contingent liabilities. If at some point, it became apparent that it would be likely that the county would be liable for one of these lawsuits, and we had an idea how much that would be, then at that point, it would be accrued if it was deemed to be likely, and we could determine the amount, or at least disclose if it was likely, but we didn't know the amount. At this point, neither of those conditions are existent. We don't know if the probability of the loss or how much it would be. Again, in note 19, just balance of the trust funds that are administered by the municipality but excluded from these financial statements, given their own recognition. As mentioned, the note in the budget, so the budget is not actually in the same exact format as this financial statement, so we've adjusted to bring into line with the format of the statements. And then a blurb in note 22 about uncertainty due to COVID-19. Certainly has had a wide variety of impacts on our various clients. Not so much, I don't think, on the municipal realm, but there's always the uncertainty ahead of time, in the future as to, say, the collectability of taxes, that sort of thing. Then there's information on segmenting the information, which shows up on page 25 numerically in a columnar fashion. Just giving further detail on that. That's followed by individual statements for the various boards that are consolidated in these statements. So the cemetery board. So what you see here as separate statements, these numbers are included in the, the statement of operations, the balance sheet, and so forth. This is just giving supplementary detail for these particular boards. That is a whirlwind tour of your financial statements. If you have any questions I can answer, I'd be happy to do so. I may have to appeal to a friend to help me out. See?
Thank you, Mr. Lightfoot. Ms. Hale, do you have any further comments at this point?
I'd just like to thank Rob Lightfoot and his staff. Very efficient and worked well with our staff to work through these, provide the appropriate information to each other. And just glad that we're at this point in the process, and thank him for his work.
My pleasure.
Thanks indeed. The council, do you have any questions or first comments? Okay, we're not seeing anything. So I have a resolution for our consideration then that reads as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth receive the external audit activities report from BDO as amended and authorizes the mayor and director, finance treasurer to sign the letters of representation and external audit report with BDO Canada LLP for their audit and accounting services regarding the Municipality of North Perth 2020 consolidated financial statements and the 2020 Cemetery Care and Maintenance Trust Fund financial statement. And further, that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth receive and approve the Municipality of North Perth 2020 consolidated financial statement and the 2020 Cemetery Care and Maintenance Trust Fund financial statement, and that these 2020 financial statements be posted to the municipal website for information. Can I call on Councillor Anstett to be our mover for this one? Councillor Anstett, would you serve as mover? Oh, has he disappeared? We're not sure if Councillor Anstett is with us. Okay. We'll come back to him. Oh, there he is. Okay. Councillor Anstett, can you hear us? Okay, I think we have technical troubles there, maybe. Okay, Councillor Behrens, will you serve as our mover for this one then?
Yes, I will. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Duncan, will you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate? We're not seeing anything, so let's have that vote. Okay, and so we believe that's carried with Councillor Anstett absent at this point. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Mr. Lightfoot and team. Always a pleasure, and appreciate the good work.
All right, thank you. I will sign off now.
Thank you.
Bye.
As item 5.5.2, Council is presented with externally audited financial statements for 2020 prepared by our auditor, BDO Canada LLP. And okay, we've done that. Let me move forward here. Our next item, well, I think I edited my notes poorly today, pertains to presentation to Council of Q2, end of Q2, operating and project performance. And this is in two parts. I'm going to call, I think, is it Fran or Becky that we're calling on for this one?
I'm here tonight, Mayor and Council. So at this time, I would just like to entertain any questions that Council might have with regard to the information that was provided for the second quarter operating.
Thank you. So there's two parts here, Council. There's the operating part, which is 5.3. That's what we're talking about now. If you have any questions or first comments on our performance as an organization, we'd like to have them at this time. Are we seeing anything? We're not seeing anything. Okay. So we have, sorry. Well, Councillor Estes back. Good to know. Okay, thank you. So I have a resolution with regards to item 5.3 that reads as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth receive the 2021 operating budget comparisons report for the second quarter as presented. And I call on Councillor Johnston to be our mover for this one.
Yes, I would so move.
Thank you. Councillor Richardson, will you serve as our seconder?
I will second that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate on this one? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that's carried. Thank you. Next then is item 5.5.4. That's the compatriot to the first one. And this one relates to project or capital spends and performance to budget. Ms. Hale, any comments on this one?
Here again, I would entertain any questions that council might have, or if there's any further detail that is required for information.
I did take note that there are a number of projects that seem slow off the mark. Maybe that was intended based on the rhythm of the year. Are we seeing many of these projects that are going to be deferred, carried over into 2022 at this point? Anyone want to comment on that?
If I might, Mayor Kaysenberg, I would say yes, there might be some that trail off. We have been very busy this past month with the payment of invoices. So assuming that the project work is getting done quickly as well, there are some, though, large projects that are well in the works, but it was anticipated that there would probably be a carryover just to the sheer size of the project. But at this time, I believe that there's been a lot of activity just in the last month and a half. So we'll soon have an update for you in another month and a half.
Thank you. Any other councillors with questions or first comments on this matter? All right, let's move this forward then. We have a resolution for our consideration that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth receive the 2021 project budget comparisons report for the second quarter as presented. Can I call on Councillor Rothwell to be our mover for that one?
Yes, I so move.
Thank you. Councillor Seiler, will you serve as our seconder?
I will second that. Thank you.
Thanks. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried as well. Thank you. Next up, then, let's move forward here. Item 5.5.5. Council is presented with a recommendation from staff to appoint for another year our auditor, BDO Canada LLP. This is a coordinated appointment on behalf of all of the lower tier municipalities of Perth County and the county itself as an entity. Ms. Hale, did you want to offer some comments on this one?
With the acceptance of the financial statements this evening, our agreement with BDO is at an end, and so therefore would like to entertain the idea of extending it for 1 year, as been discussed with our other partners. And I do believe, though, during 2022, we should then go to the marketplace again for a request for proposal from audit firms in general.
Thank you, Ms. Hale. Council, do you have any questions or first comments on this proposed action? We're not seeing any, so let's consider the resolution that's been drafted for us, that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth receive the External Audit Services Report for information, and further that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth approves the municipality's participation with the joint Perth County request for a cost quotation from BDO Canada LLP for a one-year term extension of the current external audit service agreement that is in place for 2016 to 2020 year-end work. Can I call on Councillor Anstett to be our mover for that one?
Yes, I would move that. Thank you.
Thanks. And can I direct to Councillor Behrens to be our seconder?
Yes, I would second that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote.
My vote didn't come up. Councillor Rothwell, I'm in favor.
Thank you, Councillor Rothwell. And with that, that motion is carried. Thank you very much. So, you know, we have another, my guess is another 30 minutes of work. Maybe it's time for a brief bio break, 5 minutes maybe at this point, for the sake of people's comfort. So let's resume our meeting at 8:53 if we can. Council, I invite you back to the table. Okay, Council, I'm trusting you're back at the table. I invite you to turn your cameras on as indication of same, although I certainly appreciate sometimes bandwidth can be a problem. That brings us now to item 5.6.1. This is a report from our Environmental Services Department. And in this matter, Council is invited to approve the promulgation of an agreement with Automotive Materials Stewardship, Inc., related to the receipt of certain materials from the North Perth landfill collection. I think Mr. Hackett is with us, and he can probably explain a little better than I can. So welcome, Mr. Hackett.
Thank you, Mayor Kaysenberg and Council. We're continuing to transition waste diversion programs, this time under the new hazardous and special products regulation. And we're transitioning to a producer responsibility framework where producers are individually accountable and financially responsible for their products and packaging once consumers dispose of them. So just a bit of a review of the waste diversion program so far. Tires transitioned in January of 2019. Batteries transitioned July 1st, 2020. Electrical and electronic equipment transitioned in January of 2021. This is now what we're speaking about. The Municipal Hazardous and Special Waste Program is transitioning on October 1st, 2021. And then finally, we'll have the Blue Box transition for North Perth on April 1st, 2024. So as of September 30th, 2021, the operation of the MHSW program that's been operated by Stewardship Ontario will cease, and beginning on October 1st, the HSP producers will be responsible for the requirements set on under the new HSP regulation. So this is one component of our MHSW program that's been provided by AMS since 2017, where they have provided collection, recycling, and management of antifreeze, oil filters, and oil containers collected at the Alma landfill. So they are preparing to operate as a producer responsible organization, which is known as a PRO under this new HSP regulation. The agreement is attached and is basically the same as it was before, with a few minor details changes, mainly related to reporting requirements of the new regulation, and it'll be effective October 1st, 2021. They will continue to pay us the same amount as they were before, as they're currently paying us right now, and that's 64 cents per hour for the hours that the landfill is open to the public. We were successful in having that adjusted, as the hours were based on previous hours that we used to have, so that has been corrected in this agreement. We are expecting another agreement with Product Care Association, known as PCA. They look after things like paints and aerosols and things like that, and that will be coming very soon as well. That's basically it. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Thanks, Mr. Hackett. Always thorough. Council, do you have any questions or first comments for Mr. Hackett's report? Mr. Anstead.
Thanks, Mark Kaysenberg, through you. Thanks, Mark, for the report. Just one question I did have, maybe I missed it when reading the actual agreement. There's no actual end date on this, is that correct? It would just be section 22 about termination, or did I miss an end date?
I believe that it automatically renews.
Okay.
That's the way the previous one was. I'd have to double check on that, yes.
Okay, no, I just wanted to be sure. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. Anyone else with the questions or comments? We're not seeing anything. Okay, so I have a resolution for our consideration. It reads as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth authorize the manager of Environmental Services to sign the Municipal and First Nations Automotive Materials Services Agreement with Automotive Materials Stewardship, Inc. Can I call on Councillor Duncan to be our mover for this one?
Yes, I'll move that.
Thank you. Deputy Callum, will you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. That allows us to turn to item, thank you, Mr. Hackett. Allows us to turn to item number 5.7, reports from our manager of operations. And tonight we have two items here. Item 5.7.1 invites council to consider a proposed reconstruction of the Maybury Municipal Drain as part of work associated with the first phase of the implementation of the Northeast Master Plan in Listual. Is Mr. Richardson with us tonight? Mr. Richardson is with us. Wonderful. So I'm going to invite Scott Richardson, who's our drainage superintendent, to address this report. Welcome, Mr. Richardson.
Thank you, Mayor Todd, and thank you, Council. The purpose for this report is for Council to consider Section 78 and a 4 under the Drainage Act for the reconstruction of the Maybury Municipal Drain within the town of Listual and also in the Wallace Ward. The last report for the Maybury was prepared by K-Smart Associates Limited in 1990 under bylaw 91-38. The Maybury provides an outlet for the area known to be the Northeast Master Plan, or the NEMP, as well as farms to the east at Lot 22 Concession 2 and Lot 21 Concession 1. The Maybury Drain consists of a stormwater management pond adjacent to the Larry Hudson GM dealership. There's two branches, an A and a B, also a main drain, which includes a combination of an open and a closed or a tile system. The request for the improvement of the Maybury as per Section 4 was received on July 8th from the North Perth Manager of Operations. The reconstruction of the Maybury is in conjunction with the NEMP project. The existing drain does not provide adequate enough capacity to convey the flows from the proposed new stormwater management pond. Therefore, the upgrade is required. It has been determined that the new drain will follow a different path other than the existing system, and Section 4 was suggested by the engineers, as well as a Section 78 for improvement for this project. Included in this report, the manager of operations is asking for the existing pond and municipal drain infrastructure to be abandoned west of the property line at Lot 22 and 23 Concession 2 for future drain maintenance. All the existing drains discovered with the NEMP construction will be reconnected to the new storm drains that will be installed, and it'll be directed to the new stormwater management pond on Lot 23 Concession 2. Any private infrastructure, whatever, will be the responsibility of the individual. And if you have any questions, you can ask myself or Lyndon. Thanks.
Thank you, Scott. Council, any questions or first comments? We're not seeing anything. So we have a resolution for consideration that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth, in accordance with Section 4 and 78 of the Drainage Act, proceed with the request for improvement of the Maybury Municipal Drain. Councillor Johnston, can I call on you to be the mover for that one? Councillor Johnston?
Sorry, yes, I would move that.
Thank you. Councillor Richardson, would you serve as our seconder?
I will second that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate on this one? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. Item 5.7.2 provides council with a status update on a project to conduct an experiment with traffic orientation in the first block of Wallace Avenue South from Main to Elma. and further proposes a change to street traffic flow on Nickel Avenue South from Clayton to Mowat that will create a one-way in a southerly direction. I'm going to invite Mr. Couch to update us on the plans for implementing the experiment and to explain why we might consider changes to Nickel Avenue South. Mr. Couch, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Kiesenberg, members of council. Good evening. To start with the downtown block, I have given the background to you a couple weeks back, but also tonight again, just talking about how the trial is necessary in order for understanding what the removal of the northbound movement at the intersection would be and how much more efficient the intersection would become because of it. So this is a trial. We've been monitoring actual intersections by car count and also the queue lengths in the downtown core now that traffic is back to see how much we are waiting at that intersection. And we're going to do the same after we resume the trial, or when we resume the trial or start it. And we'll be monitoring the traffic counts and the queues at that time and be able to provide information back likely in October. What we'd like to do for this block is make sure that we have it through summer conditions as a trial basis for 2 to 3 weeks, and then 2 to 3 weeks in what is a normal fall with school on condition, and be able to report back the findings that we have on the intersection functioning. It's important to note that these are shorter term solutions. This isn't an excellent solution. An excellent solution would involve a bypass and moving transports and large traffic out of the core as much as we can, as well as redesign of that intersection, but we know those are longer term solutions. This one shorter, and to be reported back probably in a 6 to 8 week window as detailed in the report. So the recommendation is to move ahead with it next week. I have a series of letters, and there's information on the website as well that's outlining all the restrictions and the fact that there'll be southbound traffic, but no northbound on that block of Wallace. If there's questions about the details of the intersection, I can answer those after I report on Nickel, and I can move to that now. The Nickel changes are specifically due to the fact that the school buses stop on the street. There's many turning movements out of 2 kiss and drop areas, as well as a parking lot across from the school. So in conjunction with our bylaw, the OPP, the school board, the staff at the school, as well as the transportation company, we've been looking at, again, long and short-term solutions. Short-term solution is to introduce a one-way block southbound on Nickel. It'll provide for far less conflicts of turning movements of cars and pedestrians around the buses and provide a one-way direction for all traffic that's clearer for everyone that's using that block. We're going to continue working with the school board on solutions, probably on their site, that will see enhanced drop-off areas and changes in the future. But for the short term, we're recommending the one-way southbound through the review to reduce the conflicts along that portion of the street. And the suggested start date is that week of August 24th. I believe it's written in the report. I can answer questions about, our discussions we've had with the school, but also in the downtown core. The recommendations are details in the bylaw that would allow for these one-way streets to be added to the appropriate schedules, restrict some turning movements, and also remove some parking spaces to allow for safer conveyance of vehicles, and also create an emergency an EMS lane for traffic in the downtown core block that allows a northbound fire truck if it's ever needed. So Pat may have a picture of this that was able to be downloaded, but regardless, I can describe it to people if they want to talk about the details of the recommendations that are coming forward for next week.
Okay. Councillor Andreessen, in terms of first questions and comments, Councillor Andreessen and then Councillor Rothwell, I do want to remind Council that this decision to engage in this experiment is by resolution of Council that was passed in September of 2019. So what we're seeing tonight with regards to the Wallace Avenue South first look is enabling legislation added to traffic bylaws just to sort of finish up and tidy up the process. But this council has made this decision already. Councillor Andreessen.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Kiesenberg, through you. I guess this question would be to Mr. Couch. I know you've been putting a lot of work into this. We appreciate this. Is there going to be any kind of support for those in the Walls Avenue South area about recommendations for paths to go north. Because essentially going north will have to change because they typically would have taken the Wallace Avenue South route to go north into northern Listual. Are there other routes that will be suggested in any kind of communication? Thank you.
We've had numerous conversations with two consultants about how to direct traffic through the area or whether we direct traffic through the area. The one indicator that's going to be clear, and the picture's coming up in front of the screen, is down at the corner of Elma and Wallace South. There'll be an indicator that trucks can make a left turn. Typically, those trucks would either continue to the west, or they would turn up Livingston and make a right and then return back to Wallace. I'm expecting traffic to do the same and find their own way through the area. We have been counting the amount of turning movements and the usage of Wellington, of Davidson, and of Livingston to see what's involved in terms of the amount of traffic there now. We're expecting more traffic will use it. By way of example, there may be 100 cars in the peak hour that would be diverted, 80 to 100 that would have to use some of these corridors, but it will probably mean a left or a right and then returning up to Main Street and then returning either up Davidson or up a Livingston, depending on what people prefer. The succinct comment from the consultants are that's exactly what we're monitoring. We want to see what the usage is going to be and how people find their solutions because they're familiar with the town for the majority of users, right? And that's what we'll be monitoring. We'll be looking for those conflicts and we'll be looking for solutions if they do create conflicts in the patterns that they start to use. But there won't be a suggested detour like a construction project because there are numerous methods of heading north after they turn.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Couch. Mayor Kiesenberg, may I have a secondary question?
Sure.
My secondary question is just around trucks in general. And I'm not sure if I understand this, so maybe you can just clarify for me, Mr. Couch. So with trucks, is it possible where the trucks could be always using line 84 versus coming up Wallace South at all and making that a no truck zone? Just wondering if that's possible or if that doesn't serve the industrial park back there. Is there alternate routes that trucks could use instead of Wallace South? Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. If they're heading eastbound, Rocker Road is paved now and an excellent option. We're going to put an informational sign up on Wednesday that's going to say it's a one-way block at the northern part of Wallace to advise trucks or anybody that's coming through the area to probably make that turn. If they're westbound, yes, 84 is a good answer. It's a brand new highway. It's excellent that this trial is being done after 84 is fully complete. It'll allow the road to perform as high as it can. And hopefully the trucks see the inconvenience of the one-way southbound. I would say, though, that I don't have the stats in front of me. It's the least used trucking movement. A lot of smaller tandem dump trucks, construction trucks and trailers may head north on Wallace South, but not the large commercial trucking that we see on the other legs. And it's that commercial trucking that is creating the queues that will move far quicker through the intersection, hopefully reduce the amount of queues and wait times at the main intersection. Long term, we're absolutely looking at recommendations through the master plan for transportation at the end of the year that will tell us where we will start to build a bypass truck route that will get them out of the core more significantly than what this would.
Thank you.
Councillor Rothwell, you're next.
Thanks, Mayor Todd. Thanks, Lyndon, for your report. First of all, I want to thank you for the work that you and staff have done with the school board and so on the Nikolov South one-way. I think the safety of the students, parents, and staff is going to be certainly enhanced with that proposal, and hopefully council will agree on that, and certainly the work with the transportation needs works as well. That's been a very congested area, and hopefully this will enhance the safety as you've suggested. the second point I want to just discuss again is the one-way proposal on Wallace Ave South. I'm glad to see in your comments that you gave the specific time frame, 6 to 8 weeks. What I would like to know is if the trial test is seen to be successful, will we continue on without any delay in that or pause, or will we have to go back again to go through the same process? And conversely, if it's found not, or to create problems with northbound traffic or whatever, we're not finding the hopeful changes to make the intersection operate more smoothly, how are we going to revert back? Thank you.
It's an overnight process with painting going into a second day that we're planning to prepare for this. It's a significant amount of work because there's elevated work with signage and traffic signals as well, and programming the lights. So that's all supposed to happen, weather permitting, on Monday and Tuesday of next week. It will remain until we get near winter conditions and a report will come back to council. We would have to winterize some of these items, mainly the delineated EMS lane coming up Wallace. We'll have to winterize that, make sure signs are put in a more permanent fashion, not on temporary mounts, and we would simply continue on with the signage and the trial as a more permanent solution at that time. So it should be relatively seamless. If it's considered not to be productive, not to be efficient at the main intersection, council will probably hear Salvini Consulting coming back with that report. And if that's the recommendation, then we'll spend that same probably overnight period of repainting, reprogramming, and then getting things back to the normal that we see there is today. Again, it'll be 1 to 2 day process, but we're prepared for both options.
Councillor Perkins, you're next.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. Mr. Couch, I realize that you have done an immense amount of work on this, trying to get movement in the downtown core, and it has been one of those issues that have served us for as long as some of us have lived in the municipality. So thank you for all your hard work. I have no issue with your Nickel Clayton suggestion, and I do realize that back in 2019 we did believe that this was a possibility and that council voted in favor of it. However, with having so many people contact me to say that this really creates such a problem moving northbound out of a heavily residential area, it is of great concern to me because there is no other light that they can be directed to move north in the municipality. So trying to take traffic off of this one small section and dump it onto other sections. And we all know the municipality and we know how hard it is to turn on to Main Street at certain times of the day and the week, especially those wanting to go westbound. That is almost going to be an impossibility. So there is no road, to my knowledge. Elma's not really built with all the four-way stops and that to be able to accommodate the traffic that really wanted to go northbound and try to come back around in order to go through the lights again. So in fairness to my colleagues, I simply can't support this just because of the sheer number of people that have contacted me with concerns, and because of our emergency vehicle access situation. I simply can't support this particular aspect of this motion. Thank you.
Mr. Couch, any comments about sort of response to this?
Yeah, there's been certainly, even at the public meeting that we had, we spoke with stakeholders as was in the motion, and then we had a public consultation. We have a fact sheet that's on the website, and it lists all of the concerns that the councillor has raised, plus many people who live in the south end of town. We know that 10% of the traffic heads northbound at that intersection. The other 85 to 90% are using the other three legs. There's substantial thousands and thousands of cars that are using the other three legs. The queues that we're measuring, they're measuring up to, several kilometers of queuing in the peak hour that we're measuring. So we'll bring all those statistics back and we'll hopefully have a solution that shows there's far greater efficiency. Getting back to the points in the comments, yes, we'd like to see how we can modify things. Certainly the right-hand turn to Main is the way for traffic to move. If they were to either turn east or west on Elma, make the right onto Main Street, it might be congested at Livingston, it might even be congested at Davidson or Wellington, but it will mean wait times. And that's one of the consequences that we'll be measuring for that 10% of the traffic that wants to continue northbound from that intersection today. So we have to know the numbers. We have to know that the fact sheet says that 90% of the traffic that is backing up is using the other legs and will be greatly impacted, hopefully in a positive way. It's that 10% heading northbound that will potentially be inconvenienced. We hope there's paths that are safe, certainly. It just means some wait times there. If you accumulate the amount of wait times in the other queues compared to that wait time, I think there's an overall success. But you're right, the costs need to be reviewed, and that's what we hope to be bringing back in October to you.
Thank you. Councillor Anstedt, you're next.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. And again, thanks, Lyndon. I know you have put a lot of work into this, like Councillor Buren said, and I too have had many residents contact me, and I do share a lot of the same sentiments that Councillor Buren has had. The thing that I keep coming back to, and maybe it's just me that's not understanding this, but in terms of metrics, what are the metrics that we're looking at to say whether this was a success or not? I haven't seen anything that says, by doing this, we're going to reduce this, and this. I need to understand what those metrics are to determine if this trial is a success. And what does success look like is my question.
Well, success probably will look at Livingston and Inkerman instead of cars queuing across the intersection and not letting anyone in. Those queues will be reduced to the extent that that does not happen frequently. It happens very frequently now. I'm even quite surprised at the length of the queues extending beyond Giant Tiger, for example, across those intersections and blocking traffic. Those are exactly what we're trying to avoid. Those wait times for anyone coming off the side streets onto those queues can be, several minutes, but that's what we'll be measuring. We've measured all the queues and all the times that people are waiting in the peak hours of traffic over the last few weeks, and we want to make a comparison when this is running to see if those queues have been reduced. We certainly know they go up across Inkerman, and we know they go up across Elizabeth even. People will leave gaps for traffic, but that's the way we'll monitor this, the amount of wait time and the queue length that changes once we're running.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Richardson is next.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Kasenberg, and thanks, Lyndon, for the report. I can understand that it's going to be inconvenient for some, but we've been lamenting about traffic in the downtown core as it's only increasing with the number of population that we've been getting. I think it's time to actually do something and try a pilot like we're doing here to see if we can get something to actually work and reduce traffic and to do that. It's a trial period. It's not permanent. And I do think that, yes, it will be inconvenient. It'll be inconvenient for a lot of people who have not seen it before or notice that everything is going to be happening down there. But I do think that we need to try something and to at least try and get some more traffic moving, especially during those peak hours. And that's what the math will show us. And we can't fly in the face of mathematics after it comes back and Lyndon brings back that report in October to find out that if this was a successful pilot or not, or we'll have to go to a different plan after that. So I'm quite curious to see what the results of this will be. Thank you.
Mr. Seiler, you're next.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. Thank you, Lyndon, for all the hard work you did here on this. I know it's one that's going to be hard to figure out, and hopefully at the end of the day, we'll know the right answer when it's all over. Just one question. what is the per second that we're going to be saving on that light that we're taking out?
Right now, we know that up to 25 to 30% of the time that would have been on this cycle from the southbound lane of Wallace, that 20% of the time will be given to the other legs of the intersection. I don't have cycle times by seconds in terms of speed and change in that loop. The consultants are going to be here the Tuesday, the Wednesday, and the Thursday, and we're going to modify that. But as far as the efficiency goes, it should be 25% less wait time at each one of those other 3 cycles, because they'll be taking the time from the south leg, which won't be given a green light now, because that's gone. It took a quarter of the time basically, but these queues really throw things off in terms of knowing how long people actually wait because they're queued up so far back. But the lights will function much more quickly, and we'll see how the queues move and how the queues reduce because of it. So the consultants have recommended that we measure those queue lengths, and that's the factor that's going to show us, you know, what the success of the intersection is, as well as what drivers are thinking as they go through. I didn't wait 2 cycles. I didn't wait 3 cycles. You know, I was through in 1 cycle. That type of comment coming back from drivers.
Okay, thank you. Just my other question. So happens that this goes bad, worse to worse. It's terrible. Is there any way that we can shorten the 4 weeks, or do we have to stick it out for the 4 weeks?
It's really the wish of council. An interim review could be done. As I said, the consultants are going to come and take a look. You know, there's BM Ross has been involved just in terms of intersection layout. We're moving stop bars and arrows and making changes to this intersection that will make it actually safer for turning radiuses for the future, and for pedestrians. So they're coming to watch on the Thursday, if weather permits, as well as the week following. But after 2 to 4 weeks, I could bring back an interim update as to where we're at in terms of the first response and some early counts that we've done maybe on queues.
Thank you very much, Lyndon, and thank you for the time you've put towards this project.
Council, any other first comments or questions at this point? All right, I have a resolution. Remember, the primary focus of this resolution is sort of tidying up the measures, both for nickel and addressing the measures that need to be made to changes to roads around stops and one-way directionality at this point in time for Wallace as well. So the resolution reads as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth amends the traffic bylaw 47-PW-2000 to read as follows in the following schedules. Schedule B, no stopping zones, Wallace Avenue South, both sides, Main Street to Elma anytime. Schedule C, all-way stops, Wallace Avenue South at Elma Street. Schedule G, one-way streets, Wallace Avenue South, southbound only, Main Street to Elma Street. And Nickel Avenue South, southbound only, Clayton Street East to Mowat Street East. And further, that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth approve no left turn Main Street westbound at Wallace Avenue and no right turn for truck traffic on Main Street eastbound at Wallace Avenue. Can I call on Councillor Rothwell to be our mover for this one?
Also move, yes.
Thank you. Councillor Seiler, will you serve as the seconder?
I will second. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion and or debate? Like many of you, I have had a number of contacts made, and I think there's a little bit of sort of big picture thinking we have to do about this intersection at this time. At Wallace, I'm referring to specifically. I think that as has been alluded, there's been, you know, a number of years of this problem building in our community. And so while it's controversial and will inconvenience some, I think the bigger picture is that others, including our downtown merchants, could be greatly benefited by this change. And it's for that reason that I believe we should stay the course that council set when we started this experiment in motion in September of 2019. Anyone else have discussion or debate? Seeing none, then let's have that vote. Yeah, it was. Okay, we're having a little bit of trouble with how do we close that? There's a window that's up. Yeah. You're seeing that. Okay, the clerk declares that it's 8 in favor. And what we don't know is the status of the vote. Deputy Clerk Beer, are you able to see the vote status?
Yes, I can. It was carried.
Carried, thank you. So that is carried. That brings us to agenda item number 8, which allows council to consider and enact bylaws. As item 8.1, we have a proposed bylaw which proposes a third and final reading authorizing the provision of a drainage work, namely the Holsworth Municipal Drain. Are there any questions or concerns for councillors before we consider this resolution? Seeing none, do we have a question? I don't know. Councillor Richardson, do you have a question at this point?
Thank you. Even though the vote has gone through, I did just have a question about the request from the Agricultural Society. I understand that it came forward as an in-kind pickup. I just wanted to make sure that there was going to be no charge for these tables as it meets with our other COVID relief that we've done, that given that the firefighters breakfast has been ongoing for a while, and I think it's fantastic. I just wanted to make sure that there was no charge associated with that. I do not believe that there is, so.
I can direct that to CAO Snell. I don't know how many picnic tables are available there, so maybe Chris, if you have anything on this.
Certainly, thank you. Good evening, Council. That was, I think, the intent of the letter, and that's why staff brought it forward, because we were waiving our usual picnic table charge with the request.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Through you, Mayor Kasenberg, I have spoken with the organizing committee, and they're looking at about 10 tables. And we do not have picnics on scheduled for that day, so we can make those tables available.
Great, thank you, Mr. Newell. That's good news. All right, so let's move on to this bylaw for the drain. I have the resolution. It reads as follows: that bylaw number 64-2021, being a bylaw to provide for a drainage works, the Holsworth Municipal Drain, be introduced, read, and considered read a third time, and be finally passed, and said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Can I call on Councillor Duncan to be our mover for this one?
I will certainly move that.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Kellum, will you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you very much. That brings us to item number 9 on our agenda. Are any of the councillors in attendance tonight wishing leave to give notice of motion? We're not seeing anything, so we'll move on to item number 10 on our agenda. For item 10.1, are there any announcements that would be of benefit to our community or that reflect well on North Perth at this time? Again, if you'd like to chat, please so indicate in the chat window and we'll call you out in order. Okay. I can report certainly that the medical officer of health has expressed that all should be seeking to get their vaccinations, and she has expressed concern about the fact that the rate of vaccination is slowing in Perth County. We've done extremely well. We've had a lot of people who've been vaccinated, both single shots and having both in the series. That has been a very good performance, but she now thinks that we're into the weeds, if you will, and we need to see movement on the part of others who have not yet considered getting their vaccine. Please find the time. I think that's the message that the medical officer of health would have us communicate at this time. And certainly people should talk to their healthcare professionals if they have questions or concerns about the safety and security of the vaccine. Sorry. Councillor Richardson, do you have an item for 10.1?
Yes, thank you again. I just happened to have noticed up at the park on Saturday morning that the dam removal has been going along just swimmingly well. I just, from what I gathered today, that the project will be completed up in short order as compared as what Mr. Newell had made mention of. But I just wanted to say that the it certainly is making significant progress, and it makes a profound difference to the water flow, especially after Saturday's rain. But it seems to make a profound difference to the water flow under the bridge, and I do believe things are slightly, if not anything, ahead of schedule, and things are coming to completion on that project, and it's looking great. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Richardson. I think I saw CAO Snell with his hand up too. Chris, do you have something?
Yes, thank you. And just would like to follow up on your comment about vaccination clinics. I'd just like to remind council that and the public that there is a clinic scheduled for this Wednesday in Listual. I believe the times are 5 to 8 p.m. and it's at Between the Lines. And I'd certainly just like to take this opportunity to thank Between the Lines for allowing us to use their facility for the vaccination clinics, which does permit us to put ice in at the Steve Kerr, but yet still offer the important process of vaccination to continue in our community. So just like to shout out to Between the Lines for their cooperation and encourage everyone to attend the clinic on Wednesday. Thank you.
Thank you, CAO Snell. Anyone else with announcements that are relevant for the community at this point? We're not seeing any, so we'll move on to agenda item 11. We have no matters for consideration in the closed session meeting of council this evening. That also means that for item 12, we have no report to offer since we did not participate in the closed session meeting. That brings us to item 13. Council, as a mandated good practice, acts near the end of its meeting agenda to confirm all of its actions and business of its meeting through what is called the confirmatory bylaw. I have that here, number 87-2021, which reads as follows. I think tonight we're going to see a whole bunch of people not voting this one because of their declared pecuniary interests. So the resolution reads as follows: that bylaw number 87-2021 being a bylaw to confirm generally previous actions of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time and be finally passed. And said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Councillor Johnston, I think you're a safe bet.
I'm always a safe bet. Yes, I would move that.
All right, thank you. And Councillor Richardson, would you be our seconder?
I would second that happily. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, is there any discussion or debate from those who are intending to vote on this motion? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. I think we had some who were not supposed to vote, right? Okay. Yeah, Councillor Rothwell, I thought you had made a declaration earlier. So I'm not sure that you want to withdraw your vote from that or not. But,
yes, I'm sorry. Yes, I should withdraw my vote. Sorry.
Thank you. We'll take care of that piece. All right. Before we adjourn, we did have, and we know that our community has many babies who arrive, but we certainly did have, addition to our council family, Councillor Anstedt and his wife had a big baby boy. I mean, he and his wife are into big baby boys, it would appear. The lad's name is Duncan, which is a wonderful name because my great-grandfather was named Duncan. So I have a certain appreciation for that name. Councillor Anstedt, you want to give us a brief report on how mom and the family are doing?
Yes, thanks very much, Mayor Kasenberg. Again, I want to thank everybody for reaching out with their warm wishes and their congratulations. Bit of a whirlwind few days on the 24th of July, but just want to say thanks to the staff at Listual Memorial Hospital and Stratford General Hospital. We're very fortunate here in our area to have such excellent health care very close to home. So everyone is at home doing well and not getting much sleep, but that's okay.
It will seem like a moment only 20 years from now. Yeah. That's been my experience, and I'm sure that others of at least my gray hair will concede that that's largely true. Enjoy, please very much enjoy and accept our congratulations. Councillors, that brings us to the point of adjournment. We have completed the deliberation and taken action on the business that came before us tonight. I have a motion for adjournment that reads as follows: that the council meeting adjourns at 9:44 p.m. to meet again for general council business on Monday, August 23rd, 2021. It's 2 weeks from now at 7 p.m. Can I call on Councillor Rothwell to be our mover for this one?
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you. Councillor Seiler, will you do the seconding honors?
I certainly will. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a non-debatable motion, so let's have that vote. With that, we are carried. Council, we are adjourned until 2 weeks from this date at 7 p.m. I hope everyone has a great weekend, a great week ahead. Things that summer owes us. Best to you until our next meeting.